Everybody's making moves. Yep, even Xbox is making moves. Granted, the moves they made recently were not the best. Increasing the cost of their consoles by $80 to $100 makes 0 sense, and following the trend Nintendo made about $80 games also doesn't help, especially when they are in last place. But the other day and the day before, there was some news coming around about what Xbox may be doing in the future, and we're going to have my hot take on the entire thing directly, because if Xbox can in fact pull this off, this may be a new era of console video games, and it may be something that people are probably not ready for, but could be a good idea for the game industry overall. So the first thing that happened was the FTC caught a giant fat L over the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition. And honestly, I really don't understand why they were even trying to do this appeal in the first place, because really the acquisition already happened. They were just trying to go back. And really what it sounds like is they were just salty the entire thing actually happened. We've discussed this acquisition merger pretty much the last 2 years ago because of this, and watching every single fanboy lose their actual collective mind because Xbox would have possibly had exclusivity for some kind of games really was rubbing everybody the wrong way. Granted, I don't want my tax money being spent on a bunch of garbage, which is in fact where it was being spent on. The reason is because Activision and Blizzard being bought by Microsoft was probably going to be the best outcome of all, either dissolving ABK altogether or having some other company try and buy them and split them up would have really ruined everything all at once. And seeing now what actually happened, where every game is going to be on every platform and Xbox is a third-party publisher, it goes to show that this was the best outcome for gamers and everyone all alike. The fact that this brought more content to more people, the fact that Xbox has the right possibility of putting all of their games from ABK onto Game Pass directly, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, World of Warcraft needs to be on consoles, the WoW sub has to be rolled into the Game Pass sub, and everybody should be able to go ahead and enjoy every single Call of Duty that was ever released on Xbox Game Pass directly, and also all the old Activision Blizzard games as well. Prototype, I'm looking at you, my boy. Xbox has a huge library of IP now to pull back and work through and even remaster, re-release, or even remake to bring to a brand new audience. And that IP is going to be pivotal for them moving forward. And the reason why IP is going to be more important than anything in the future is mostly because everybody is moving away from the console war, and I feel things are going to be moving into the content wars. And that is where Xbox personally is probably going to shine the most, with all the amount of games that they own and the way that the fact that they're putting all their games on every platform. The crazy part is, how is the console going to look moving forward? A few months back, we talked about Asus and Xbox working together to launch their handheld. And according to Hazardor Gaming and other places, it turns out that the handheld has in fact actually leaked. And if things are in the right space, this could be a good move in the future. However, though, there are going to be a lot of roadblocks that are going to be getting in Xbox's way and Microsoft's way if they want this to be a success. And according to videocards.com, yes, this is a real website, the images have been leaked of what the Asus Xbox handheld will in fact look like. Pretty much just an Asus handheld that we've normally seen before, like the ROG Ally, but codely named the ROG Ally 2. It's got the GameCube grips on the side, which really, in my opinion, I would honestly prefer, because even on the Steam Deck, it feels kind of odd not having that grip there. Everybody was talking about how dirty they are. I feel like these just probably came off the manufacturing line and just got pictures taken of them as they were getting measured to make sure there weren't any defects. So there are two versions, in fact, though, a black version and a white version. However, though, it's not just simply by color. It turns out that each version will in fact have different performance metrics directly. As you can see, here are the serial codes and numbers directly of the CPU and LCD on them specifically. Now, here's the thing, though. The specs on this Ally 2 is going to be very specific, with the black version being the RC73X1. It's going to have the AMD 8-core Ryzen Z2 Extreme CPU attached to it, a 7-inch 120Hz display, I'm going to be guessing LCD, 32 gigs of DDR5 at 8,500 mega transfers per second. So it's going to be pretty quick RAM speed, but at the same time, 32 gigs on an SoC is really pretty good. The white Ally for the Ally 2, the white model, is going to be basically the Steam Deck 2 or the Aerith Plus model. It's the newer version of the Van Gogh chipset that the Steam Deck uses, but this is also going to be 7 inches and 120 hertz display, which I'm guessing will also be 1080p, and of course with an LCD, but contains 16 gigs of RAM at 85 mega transfers per second. So the one thing I'm worried about with this specifically is two things right off the bat. Pricing, number one, because the Z2 Extreme can be in fact pretty expensive, and number two, the amount of RAM being required for an SoC and having the ability to actually provide a proper graphical improvement. Well, we'll get to that in just a moment. And of course, how do we know they're Xbox handhelds? Basically because of the Xbox logo on the top left corner. You're going to see the fact that it's there. It's sort of like, looks like somebody took a pen and drew it in. It's not painted in yet directly, but it's going to have, of course, the D-pad, the start and select. I call it start and select because I'm old. The Xbox button directly to give you an Xbox UI on it and go from there. You can also see, if I wasn't in the way, that the actual length of the device is around 31 centimeters. I'm accounting for the 4 centimeters on the left-hand side, just completely removed as well. So it looks to be like a pretty good sized machine as well. Now, the white model is here too, and you can see there's no real difference between the two of them physically besides the actual color scheme, even though this one has, of course, the colored icons for X, B, A, and Y, and of course the Xbox logo is just a blacked out sticker for right now. But these do look much better personally than what I was honestly expecting, and it does fall into the Asus ROG Ally camp. Now, the funny part about this thing is that this actual handheld does look a lot thicker than others. It definitely looks thicker than the Steam Deck directly, but of course it may feel better in your hands overall once you get your grips on it. The thing is though, there are also 2 USB type connectors on the top, which really is kind of strange. I'm wondering if you're going to have just one for charging and then one for adding any other type of devices onto it or anything else along that lane. The big concern, though, is that this may in fact be announced at Computex in 2025, and this may be the point where it actually goes to show what Xbox may in fact be trying to do in the future, because there are some other key indicators of what might be happening. Because it turns out the other day as well, the Xbox app on Windows now has a clock and Wi-Fi info and battery status in compact mode, just in time for the Xbox branded handheld, says Tom Warren, and truly this really does make a lot of sense. If they can get a proper UI onto an Xbox handheld version and supply a simple way of navigating the UI directly with Windows, this could be a good move moving forward. We've talked about recently how Xbox was making changes to their UI specifically on the console as well, providing group hubs and things like that on the big picture style of Steam. But the thing is though, that's going to be the biggest issue of all. Windows is incredibly clunky to navigate on a tablet format, and having no mouse control and no keyboard control while having Windows there doesn't have a good feeling overall, especially for Windows 11. If Xbox can provide a good move of providing the customer and consumer with a good way of navigating the UI and not having a really weird Asus overlay on top of it that they've been doing consistently for the very longest time, but also having a simple way of accessing Xbox games directly, this could be a good handheld for many people overall moving forward. In fact, this could be also leading to another thing as well. When Xbox was talking about Gears of War Reloaded going to PlayStation and PC, they simply talked about the Xbox PC, not the Xbox PC app. And I even said, hey, this could in fact be a flub from Microsoft, but seeing this here could be an indicator of what they're trying to do. The space of gaming may in fact be changing, and Microsoft moving to an actual PC model with a proper tablet format on a handheld device could be a good way of doing things moving forward. If the touchscreen is responsive, if the on-screen keyboard works well, if they provide some way of actually using mouse control for pinch and zoom on the actual device, so instead of having to use a mouse pad like the Steam Deck does, if it provides proper Game Pass support moving forward, if you can download and install games natively onto the device, it's going to be a good thing overall. Now, the dumbest thing that I've heard recently is people saying, why would I buy an Xbox handheld if I cannot play Xbox games? Well, that's really a very because every game released recently is in fact an Xbox PC game, regardless of whether you buy it on your console or not. The only differentiator you're going to have between this and other Xbox devices would be about backwards compatibility. And Microsoft really has to go to show why you should go ahead and have your Xbox games be able to be played digitally and natively on that handheld device if you've purchased them directly. Granted, I feel like you should be able to put your disc into an Xbox Series console, have that physical license turn into a digital one, and that stays into your library in perpetuity, which you can then play on your Asus handheld device or your Xbox PC or your Xbox handheld directly. Not simply relying on just buying a game digitally as well for a second time or relying simply on to Game Pass. If they're able to do something like that where you can scan in your barcode or put in a specific ID online and say, hey, I own this game physically, I want to go ahead and add it to my digital library, that would be a phenomenal thing to do, because that would then go ahead and let people know, like, hey, you have access to everything. Because Game Pass is great, but some people still want to go ahead and buy their games physically altogether, which is perfectly fine, even though that segment of the audience is in fact dwindling more by the day that goes on. The biggest concern, though, isn't just digital ownership, but also it's going to be price, in my personal opinion. If this device costs more than $500 at the smaller level, which is at the Aerith model, which is the white model, then we're going to have a bigger problem. Personally, I feel like that model should cost anywhere between $399 and $450, similar to the Switch 2. Basically because having a 1080p, which is what I'm guessing, 7-inch 120Hz screen does fit directly in line with what the Switch 2 should cost. The black model, which has the extra RAM attached to it as well, should be around the $499 to $550 mark, in my personal opinion, an extra $100 on top. The problem, though, is Asus has a really bad idea with how they price things directly, and it turns out to be far more bloated than it actually should be. Having the Asus ROG Ally hit the $600 to $700 mark is never going to be a good thing, even with the Z2 Extreme chip inside of it. And the fact that the Aerith model, being the upgrade to the Van Gogh, could also be a good thing as well if these things are priced correctly. Once you start getting into the $600 or $700 territory, why would you even buy that handheld in the first place? You're basically just pushing yourself out of a price range that people do not want to spend their money on. People were freaking about $450 with the actual Nintendo Switch 2. If you want to be competitive in that space, Asus and Microsoft, you guys are going to have to eat the cost on that up front, which is going to be hard to say because you guys just raised the cost of your consoles not recently because of everything else going on in the actual economy. So this may not even be the right time to launch this handheld device, if you ask me. And again, the success of this relies on a couple of factors, like I said before: price, library, accessibility, whether or not you can have everything natively on your handheld device, and some way of providing physical ownership or digital ownership of the games you've already purchased is going to go a long way. We can't just rely on cloud streaming for doing this directly. There has to be another way of doing it overall. And if Xbox goes ahead and they follow the steps that, like I've talked about before with Sonic Unleashed Recompiled, being able to recompile all their old games into PC versions would in fact save them a lot of headache and ownership moving forward for their customers, and show a proper olive branch of goodwill on actual proper digital ownership, and give customers a good reason to spend money on your platform rather than others, because if they own their products digitally outright, that would be a good thing for everybody overall. You know, the pro-consumer thing to do. Give everybody the actual ownership of the product that they've purchased, then they'll spend more money on your actual product and service. Wow! But again, like Xbox always tends to do, I have a feeling they will in fact step on a rake. And my prediction is this is going to be priced out of the ballpark of where it needs to be. I have a feeling it's going to be priced a bit more than what the Asus ROG Ally 1 is priced at right now. And we're going to be seeing a lot of people either try to pick it up or not grab the right one, or grab one that may in fact be a little bit underpowered. If it comes out at the right price, then I'll be incredibly impressed. But again, like Xbox, they always tend to step on a rake. We'll see more at Computex though, because I definitely want to see how it's going to perform, and seeing the testing of the Aerith model compared to the Van Gogh model of the Steam Deck is going to be interesting to see. So hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed and see how things go. But you know what? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Will you be picking one up? Are you going to be taking a look at Computex as well? Or has the handheld space not really been something you're interested in? I want to know what you guys have to say with that as well. If you want to see more of this kind of content, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content, and also hot takes in the gaming industry, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 83,000 subs. And I just want to say Thank you guys so very much. If you want to go ahead and get Discord access and emote during live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. If you don't want to spend the buck, don't sweat it. Just show up Saturday nights, 8:45 p.m. Eastern. Trust me, it's a hell of a time. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you next time. Peace!